YouTube. This is Alan with thebuildingpreppers.com. Today's Bible study is going to be out of the King James, and it is in Genesis chapter 20. So, let's get on with it. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. We don't really know why. We don't know if it was something that he just felt or had a conversation with God about, or if he just decided one day I'm going to go over here. But he journeyed. So he left the area that he was in, and he journeyed. And Abraham said to Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Sarah is 90 years old at this point. So he's down south toward Egypt, and he's repeating what we've read in chapter 12, verse 13. Abimelech is not the guy's name, that's his title, like king or whatever, but his title is Abimelech. And so now they're going to this new king, this new Abimelech, and he's telling Sarah, let's lie again. Now, it's not really a lie, it's more like that Catholic white lie, where it's a half-truth. Yes, she is technically his half-sister, but she's also his wife. But we see the repeating process here of, let's tell him you're my sister. And so Abimelech unknowingly comes and takes her. And this is 25 years later, after chapter 12. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, right? And that took there is more like, came and added her to his harem. And here, she's 90 years old. Can you imagine how beautiful she must have been, or what the restoration must have been that God made in their bodies? For him, here's this king. He's got all these harems. He can have any woman that he wants, really. And here he's choosing this 90-year-old woman that he's going to think is beyond beautiful and take her into his harem as well. So, just imagine that. Verse 3. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, thou art but a dead man. For the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife." But Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, "Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation?" So does he know about Sodom and Gomorrah at this point? And knows what he did with Lot? Based on the conversation that Abraham had with God, not destroying, for 10 or for 50 or for all these different things. We don't know. Said he not unto me, "She is my sister"? And she herself said, "He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this." So he's trying to pull the wool over God's eyes by saying this. And God said unto him in a dream, "Yeah, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart. For I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her." So it wasn't his integrity that did this, it was God, controlling him and making him not do this, right? Let's flip over to Proverbs 21:1 real quick. And I don't have a marker on this one, so we're going to have to just flip. "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." So this is God fully controlling this guy, right? Making it where he doesn't even want to touch her at this point. Before God reveals it to him that, hey, this is what you're going, and yeah, I know, it was the integrity of your heart. Sure, I'll give you that one. But really, I'm the one that controlled you. I'm the one that made it this way. I love how God works. "Now therefore, restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. So this is also the first mention of prophet in the Bible. And we can see here that the first work of a prophet is to pray. Therefore, Abimelech rose early in the morning. I love that. Rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, What hast thou done unto me? Remember that from the last one too, where he was lying and the king came to him, or the Pharaoh, well, why did you do this to me? You could have just told me the truth or whatever, but no, you had to do this. And I always think at this point, when we're reading these things, it's always harder to take a rebuke from an unsaved person. So if you're saved and you're going around, acting all Christian-y, and then you're in a bar, somebody, hang on a second, don't you go to that church over there? What are you doing in here? It's that rebuke, and it hits deep, when somebody says that to you, or somebody knows you, and then they see you outside, and you're backsliding, or you're slipping up doing something, or maybe you're riding down the road and you're on the phone with a church buddy of yours or something. Somebody cuts you off and you cuss the guy out. What kind of impression is that leaving on the guy on the other line? Wait a second. I thought you were a church. I thought you went to church. I thought you were saved. I thought you were a Christian. And you're doing this. So it's that rebuke from an unsaved man. It just burns. And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou, that thou hast done this thing? So he's saying, what were you thinking? That you wanted to go to lie to me, right? So then we get to verse 11, and this is his first excuse. So the last time he didn't really make excuses, but this time he's going to start off making excuses. Abraham is. And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. So now he's telling the truth that, yeah, she is my sister, but, we just left that husband part out. It's funny. So, it brings the question, is she only your wife when it's convenient for you? Because here, oh yeah, she's my wife, all my kingdom or all my land or whatever. But then when we're going over here, we're going to keep that part secret. You're not really my wife now. You're just my sister. It's the mindset of people, even prophets. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness, which thou shalt show unto me, and at every place whither we shall come, say of me, He is my brother. So every new place that they go to, just lie. Tell them that you're my sister, so that way we don't get killed or something, or I don't get killed. But then, we'll move on and you can become my wife again. It's kind of becoming a family tradition, right? And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000... So now he's using his words against him. I've given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes, unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech, and his wife, and his maidservants, and they bare children. So apparently, whatever God did to them, they weren't able to have children. His whole kingdom wasn't able to have children. So whether Abimelech knew this or not, I don't know. But then all of a sudden he was healed, and the whole land was healed, and he was able to have children again. For the Lord God had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So, Yeah. I mean, that just brings to mind a whole bunch of stuff. Anyways, how long were they there? Because if they didn't know, was it just a couple days? Or were they there for months and people were trying to get pregnant and nobody was getting pregnant and people started getting worried? Maybe it was back at, verse 8 where the men were sore afraid. Maybe they're like, okay, well, God's telling you this stuff that, he could have killed you, but here we can't even have children anymore, and was it just the women? Was it the men too? Were they not able to ejaculate? I don't know. But obviously they knew something. And so if they were there for months, now all of a sudden the people are healed because Abraham prayed. So let's go ahead and move on to chapter 21. And the Lord visited Sarah. I love that. Visited. As he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoke. So if you go back to chapter 18, verse 10, he promised that there was going to be an appointed time that he was going to come and then Sarah would conceive. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac, which means laughter. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, so that goes back to the commandment, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck, so that she could nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. So here, Sarah is, it's one of those, not really laughing, like mocking, like she had done previously, but it's going back to like laughter that we saw come out of Abraham, that laughter of unbelief. So when people hear Abraham and Sarah had a son, what do you mean that they had a son? Excuse me, just that disbelief in the people, the congregation that they had with them. And I got hiccups. And she said, next verse. And the child grew and was weaned. So this is about 3 or 4 years old. And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. So Ishmael is about 14 years old at this point. So let's move on. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. So that brings the question, to me anyways, was it possibly because of his name? You got named Laughter, kind of a mocking thing about his name. Maybe it was because he was born first. Here you are, your mom names you Laughter, and I was born before you, that whole pecking order kind of thing. How, when you have the first child, and everything's fine, you're all, picking the binky up off the ground and wiping it off before you give it back to the kid, and you watch what they eat, and you change their diapers, and all the different things or whatever. And by your second or third kid, it's like, okay, just pick it up and hand it back to them, or whatever. And then the older kids picking on the youngest one, I was born first, all these different things that kids do. I never did that, of course. I have a younger brother, but I was this great kid. I never picked on my little brother. So, verse 10. You're distracting me. Stop it. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. So here she hears Ishmael, mocking her son. And so now she's saying, nope, I want him out of here. He's not going to take any heir or, anything that you're leaving him. He's not going to take any of that stuff. He's not my son. Get him out of here. Get his mom out of here. And Isaac's the son. He's going to inherit everything. And remember, Hagar they got her in Egypt the first time, when they went to Egypt, and she came out. So she was a handmaid to Sarah, and so that's like a good friend of Sarah, a confidant, kind of thing with Sarah. And here Sarah is just completely turning her back on him. But this has been 14 years. So Hagar, went out, left, met the Lord, came back, and she's been living here now for 14 years with Abraham and Sarah. And Isaac's growing up right before Sarah. And now all of a sudden Sarah has a baby and everything changes. Oh, you get out of here. But yet Ishmael watched his family, how they reacted with the Lord, how they praised the Lord, how they worshiped the Lord, how they prayed to the Lord, how they walked with God. All these different things. He's seeing this every day. He's growing up on the farm. He's learning different things, learning different skills, learning how to take care of things. He's got his father that's in charge of this large group of people, so he's learning leadership skills. He's doing all these things, learning from his father. So it's obvious his father, we'll read the next verse too, but his father loves him. So let's go ahead and read the next verse. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. Oh, and Ishmael means God hears. That verse 10 there, also brings to mind that, was Sarah kind of in the back of her mind still very spiteful to Hagar? Was there that occasional sarcastic comment being made, or something like that, when it was her choice in the first place for Abraham to sleep with her? But Sarah's definitely has a spiteful side, or a bitterness towards Hagar, for her to just instantly be willing to kick him out of here, get him out. Verse 12. And God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So there's a time that we should hearken to our wife's voice, and there's a time that we shouldn't. I couldn't decide, so I stayed single. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. And Abraham rose up early in the morning. Abraham did not linger like Lot did. God told Abraham, go ahead, let her go. I'm going to make him a great nation too, just so let them do this. But before, he had Hagar come back. But now he's saying, okay, go ahead and let Hagar go. But Abraham didn't linger like Lot did, with the angels telling him, look, we got to get out of here. And Lot's, twiddling his thumbs and whatever. He got up early and he accomplished things. He did the things. And he took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. So the bread of life, comes to mind. He who comes to me shall never thirst again. Kind of cool. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Now, Beersheba doesn't actually get named that till the end of the chapter, towards the end of the chapter. So we'll cover the name of Beersheba when we get to it. And the water was spent in the bottle. So I don't know exactly how long she's been traveling out there in the wilderness, but now there's no more water in her bottle. And she cast the child under one of the shrubs. So she sits the kid, the scorching heat, in the Middle East. And so she puts Ishmael underneath this bush, so at least he has some shade. And she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as it were a bow shot. So, the distance of an arrow, so she goes away. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. So now here she's, weeping and wailing, probably praying, herself, but she's crying, which just reminds me that sometimes life gets so hard that we do have to just kind of vent and let it all out in God. And whether that brings tears to our eyes, whether we get so to the bawling to the point that we can't even talk anymore, whatever. We need to be able to do that. But here's the next part. Oh, let me bring up another question I had here after reading all this. Was Hagar bitter towards Abraham in this? Is that why she's crying? Sort of. Obviously she doesn't want to lose her son, so I can completely understand crying about that. But is she holding any bitterness towards Abraham in this? Or did Abraham come to her and say, hey, look, this is what my wife wants. God spoke to me. He told me to let you go. Here's some items to take with you. Did God tell him to give her those items? I don't know. But is she holding it against Abraham, or did she understand that this was what God wanted? So verse 17, and God heard the voice of the lad. So while Hagar is over there yonder weeping, apparently Ishmael is underneath this bush praying. He grew up, like I said, he grew up in a home, a godly home. And so he knew about prayer. He knew about the one true God. He was raised in a household that worshiped the one true God. And so here he is underneath this bush praying. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven. Now, this is not the same angel of the Lord that we saw when she was kicked out the last time. The angel of the Lord said, I have heard your cries. This one says, and said unto her, what aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. So this is just an angel here. The first one was actually Yeshua that came down to see her. But this one is actually just an angel. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water, and gave the lad drink. So this well had been there, but she didn't see it. Sometimes God is putting things together in the backgrounds. So while we're praying, and we might be praying for the same thing over and over and over again, for days, for weeks, for months, for years, all the different players involved, like a chess game, you've got to move all these different pieces in place for the final result to take hold. And so God is moving all these different pieces around, and finally he opens her eyes, and she can see the well that's in front of her. And that's been there the whole time. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. So she goes back to her hometown, Egypt, and finds him a wife, and goes ahead and gives her to him. So he didn't go out and find himself a wife, but his mom brought him a wife out of her homeland. Because we're kind of short on time, I will go ahead and add this little part here. Since I mentioned it earlier, I'll go ahead and mention it here, but we'll get into the understanding of why it's named that. But Beersheba means the well of the oath. And in the next Bible study, we will start off in verse 22 of chapter 21, and we'll go till we run out of time. So, if you like these videos, please share, please like, please subscribe. If you want more on the prepping side of my channel, go to my Patreon and check us out there. I do some pretty cool videos over there. I don't really do a whole lot of scripture reading on there, but I do have the podcast that gets posted over there. I don't post my podcast stuff here. And the podcast, I take a verse or two and I relate it to preparedness. So I have some fun with that. They're only about 5-minute podcasts, but those are fun. You can also find those on my Facebook page, Building Preppers. You can also go to thebuildingpreppers.com, and you can access all those different links and stuff across there. But yeah, so without further ado, this is it. Shalom, y'all.